Hello and welcome to this episode of the Ranting Atheist podcast. Today we'll be listening to a conversation I had with another Christian. We met on Twitter. It was a tweet where people were tweeting about their religious journey, and what I saw that he started out as a Christian, claimed to be an atheist, then became a Christian again. I was like, here we go again. It's really, I used to be an atheist trope kind of people. So let's even hear what he has to say, like if he's really interested. And he was interested. He came on, shared his story, and I was left with questions because I was like, were you really an atheist? Do you really think you were an atheist? Like, you don't to spoil it too much, but make the judgment for yourself. Like, I was just like, does this guy? I was just like, I just found out that he's not the type of Christian you'll meet on the street today. So you make the judgment for yourself. Make the judgment for yourself. It might leave you with questions as well, but it is what it is. So if you're yet to subscribe up, Apple, Spotify, Google, YouTube, and other places you find podcasts, then check out the show notes below for links you may find useful, WhatsApp, Clubhouse, and so on and so forth. So now let's go and listen to the conversation I had with Kingsley. Hello, Kingsley, and you are welcome to the Ranting Atheist podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here. I think this is the first time I'm being on a podcast,
Wow.
and especially as it has to do with an aspect of life I find interesting. I engage in philosophical discussions a lot online. So this is actually the first time I would be engaging in a verbal discussion in that regard.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, that's the way life is. It starts for the first time. Before you know it, now them they rush you. That's how it starts. Yeah.
We will this,
yeah, let's see how it goes. So yeah, welcome. Thank you for accepting this invite. You are the first person to finally accept, because I have been chasing it down. And before we get to know you, let me just state the reason why we're here for our listener. We met on Twitter, had some exchange. Actually, it was a particular tweet that I saw. Is this I grew up currently, could see myself being, and you quoted the person that also replied that style. So let me just quickly read it. What you wrote was, grew up Pentecostal Christian and became an atheist. That statement just triggered me. Okay. Currently, theist, unaffiliated to a specific religious gathering, but a spirituality that has a Judeo-Christian / biblical basis. Could see myself becoming Orthodox Christian or Roman Catholic. All right, I'll ask you a question on that later, but
okay.
The aim of this discussion is not to go back and forth on whether there's a God or not. We have already come to our conclusion on that. The aim of this is as a result of that tweet, wherein you grew up as a Christian. You were raised up in a Pentecostal church, or Christianity rather. Then you lost your faith and you got it back, even though it's not in the way you once had it, but it seems to be, I believe it to be in a better way to you, because unaffiliated with a religious gathering, I like those kind of Christians. Those they have seen that, okay, this gathering is sus, but the comma is you could become Orthodox Christian, which is cool, but Roman Catholic, I have my reservation about Catholics, but that's by the way. So that's the aim of this whole discussion, to hear your side of the story. And hopefully for you, it will be a way to win over an atheist like myself to the way of God, even though that may not be your own intention, but it happens when, facts tell, stories sell.
Okay.
That's the whole aim of this podcast. So
All
you
right.
get
So I just want to let you know. I would be leaving out some details in the story as they might seem, should I say, they might seem unbelievable or spurious in the sense that most of my experiences lean towards what I see as paranormal or supernatural. But then my other convincing factors for me, or other things that probed me to, leave atheism. My atheism was not really the conventional kind of atheism, in
no, just
sense
relax,
that.
relax, relax. We'll get there. We'll get there.
Okay.
We'll
Oh,
get
okay.
there.
No
So that
problem.
that's why I just had to do this so that you understand why this whole setup. Why did this guy do this? So if you on Twitter, it's not easy to fully explain
Okay.
everything. But now that we're having a conversation, that's the
All right. It's
intention
okay.
behind it.
It's okay.
So we'll first of all begin with introduction, get to know about you a little.
Okay.
Then we'll start asking about terms, your definition of terms and terminologies. Before
Okay.
you now give us the whole story, before you go to that point and go
Okay.
and get. So that's the whole your great. So first of all, we know you're Kingsley. You're welcome. So what
Okay.
we'd like to know is your age. If you don't want to say your age, you can be Gen Z, Millennial, Gen X if you're that old.
Okay. Okay.
Are you like what do you do for a living? Where are you located? It's not compulsory to answer everything as if you're not comfortable
Okay.
with it.
Okay.
And so on. Are you single? If you all those things, just a little,
Okay.
just to get to know
All right.
you.
So I'm 24 years old.
All right.
Yeah. Should I say, using generation terms? I'm a Gen Z. Let's say like at the forefront, like one of those who began the
Yeah,
Gen Z
96,
generation. Yeah, 1998. Yeah, kind
Oh,
of.
okay.
Yeah.
So senior Gen Z.
Gen Z, exactly, something of that sort. So, I'm single. Am I single? Okay, I'm single actually, but at some point it seems like I'm not single, and it's not really something I want to
Yeah, of course,
delve
it's
into.
personal.
Okay,
It's not, yeah,
okay,
but yeah.
okay. Then I'm a software engineer.
Nice.
Yeah. The CTO, there is a startup I run with a friend. It's called
Okay.
DeFi Technologies. It's a blockchain intrinsic company.
Okay.
And then I am the founding engineer of a logistic company called Quick Pick.
Okay.
Yes. So, for other things, what else would you like to know?
Yeah, that's fair enough. We don't want you to give us too much information you're not comfortable with.
Wait, what's going on? What's going on there?
Okay, we are going to cut that part. What the fuck? Why you playing this shit? Sorry, it's my fucking roommate. What the fuck?
It's okay. I understand. I've been there.
I can't do it. Okay, so let's focus, Jerry.
Okay.
Chris. So we have already established your type of Christianity, but what would you define a Christian? What is the definition of a Christian to you?
To me, a Christian is someone who adheres to the teachings of Jesus Christ.
I can't hear you well again. Your volume has gone down.
Okay. Someone who adheres to the teachings or who follows the philosophies of Jesus Christ.
Okay.
Yes.
That's your definition.
Just it. Like,
Okay.
if your worldview is informed by the teachings of Jesus the Christ, then you're a Christian.
Okay. Now, the reason for that question is, I get different, from my understanding, is someone that believes Jesus Christ, that accepts Christ as their Lord and Savior and believes he died and rose again. Does that apply to you?
Yeah, sure. It does apply to me. I believe Jesus Christ walked the earth, based on personal researches.
Okay.
I believe Jesus Christ walked the earth, though there are people with reservation, even though they constitute a minor fraction of the scholarship sphere. I believe Jesus Christ existed. He was the Son of God. I believe he had divine origin.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
All right. That's good to clarify.
Okay.
So, as a former atheist, what would you define atheism as? What would you like? Okay,
Okay.
how do you define what you understand by atheism and an atheist?
Okay. So,
Yeah.
an atheist is someone who disbelieves God propositions, or someone who disbelieves, or whose philosophy negates belief. Like, they reject belief in God. Now, it's important to understand that the rejection of belief in this case refers to disbelief. I like to see disbelief as different from unbelief in the state that, in the sense that babies, for example, are in a state of unbelief, not disbelief. Now, a lot of people like to argue that babies are atheists. That all it takes,
That's
okay,
nonsense.
all it takes to be an atheist is to lack a belief, which would place a rock in the
Yep.
same category, a rock or an inanimate object that lacks a belief. But then to be an atheist requires a fully developed cognition and
Agency.
the ability, exactly, agency, and the ability to express this disbelief through propositions or arguments, if you will. Yes.
Mm, I'm not sure you have to bring propositions. It's just
Or
basically
arguments.
on the God claim. To me, this is how I
Yeah.
simplify it. Yeah, on the
Okay.
God claim, your answer is no and not yes. That's how I simplify it. Do you believe in God? Yes. Do you believe in God? No. Do you understand? So the reason is that
Okay.
it's only someone with cognition and agency can answer the question. Do you get?
Yeah, yes, I
So
understand.
the baby cannot answer that question. A rock cannot answer.
Exactly.
So they are not in that category or qualification of whether they believe or not believe.
Yeah. So I use proposition because I'm familiar with atheists. No, I'm not familiar with atheists. An atheist who just says no without that I don't believe in God without giving reasons. They do not believe in God, which is why I say I think, or which is why I included preposition in the definition of an atheist, or arguments, like they can express this disbelief or this lack of belief through arguments.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
So an atheist is also someone that does that, basically. So, right?
Yes, Chief. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted us to clear definition, so there's no confusion for anybody that is listening.
Okay.
So now what we are going to go into is your religious background, and you're going to take us on that journey. It's going to be story format as your mind can go far. So your religious background, from when you first believe, your experiences, how you church went, how you saw the whole religion, how you believed before we now get to the point where you stopped believing, or you started disbelieving. Then what now comes you to go back? So you are focusing on your Pentecostal Christian experience.
Okay. Yeah. So I was born into a Christian family. Mother and father are both Christians. It's the church I was acquainted with, the church I was acquainted with is an offshoot of this famous or popular Christ, not really famous, popular Christ Apostolic Church. It's an offshoot, like it broke out from the church.
Okay, I know CAC has been breaking up a lot, have you?
Yeah. So it broke out from the church. So my the members of my church, the members of the church are quite keen on things that they view as spiritual. So, like giving prophecies and
I lost you.
let's say exposing things that are albeit is considered secret. All right, so I was raised in a church that's an offshoot of CSC. And I was pretty like my parents, I was pretty much engrossed in spirituality, or not really spirituality, religiousness. And even though I still lived a secular life, I still had belief in God, and would express I would always express myself as a Christian then. So but then I got exposed, I was always the curious kind, so I happened to read a lot of history, a lot of philosophy. There's this encyclopedia. It's a digital encyclopedia called Encarta, Microsoft Encarta.
Which year was that? Encarta?
That was Encarta 2008.
Okay, that's just before the last one. I know the 2009 was the last one they did. I think before they realized that the internet has come to take their business.
Yeah, so I had so much flair for Encarta, so I studied a lot of things, some of which I still remember, some of which have been replaced by other commitments. So then I wasn't even acquainted with a thing as atheism. Then I didn't even know that there could be people who would doubt the existence of God. So I actually got introduced. I know this might sound unbelievable, but I actually got introduced to atheists via 2Go. Then 2Go was the trending messenger then. So I got introduced to atheists via 2Go, and then I was always willing to defend the notion of the existence of God. But I had pretty stupid arguments then. Pretty flawed arguments.
Give us some examples.
Yeah, okay. One example, it's something along the lines of the teleological argument. That's the argument from intelligent design. Except mine was a dumb version of the teleological argument. I was always saying things like, goats, you can't find a lion eating grass, stuff like that. Like they were specially designed to eat meat. They're specially designed to be carnivores. Silly arguments then. So, and to me, I thought they were, I really hit the nail on the head. I had made a profound argument that the atheist would not be able to refute. And at some point, I was lucky in the sense that this was an atheist who was not familiar with, or who had not so much enamored himself in philosophical arguments, so he could not raise a counter argument. So he kind of agreed with me. He's along these troops of he is a member of this troop of new atheists, the ones we call Dorking drones. So he kind of agreed. Like he is a member of this troop of new atheists. Like new atheists are people who are fairly new to atheism. So we call them almost every atheist. Okay. All right. He
like
was
atheist post 2009 or 2010. Those are
the people in class as new atheists, like they're not really ones that dive into philosophy. They just they kind of idolize people like Hitchens and Dawkins, sort of.
Okay.
Yeah, so he didn't really, he wasn't really giving me counter arguments that would make me think then. So I thought I won the whole thing. But then the platform that really introduced me to atheists that have some level of arguments that would make one go back and rethink their faith or rethink whatever theology they embrace. So was Nairaland. So Nairaland really introduced me to new style of argument. Then I got introduced to this concept of infinite regress. Infinite regress, like basing several contingencies or multiple contingencies like that. You do not have room for one necessary thing or one necessary fact. So I was introduced to the concept of infinite regress, and there's this particular argument then that always got my attention. Like, if a complex God created a complex universe, it means he is more complex. Or if a God created a universe that is complex, and we kind of drowned the contingency of the universe, that the universe need for a creator on its complexity, it means that God who created the universe is more complex. So where did God come from? So that was one argument that really got me then, as a Christian.
Okay.
So I continued discussions with atheists, and then I was still in secondary school then, actually. So I was quite introduced to different concepts that pertain existence of God: atheism, theism, deism, pantheism, panentheism. I got introduced to those concepts quite early.
That's fucking awesome.
And okay, then I took one more step. Actually, I learned Hebrew. I learned to read and write Hebrew. I felt the only way to understand the Bible was to understand it though I'm still learning Hebrew now. It was something I did for a while, dropped because of other commitments, but I'm hoping to go back to, yes. So I can write Hebrew, I can read and write Hebrew, Hebrew and Aramaic. My Greek is still flawed, but I can always learn it. So I learned I learned Hebrew then, and the reason I dropped it for a while was because it was taking away my time from school work, and it sort of had an impact. Yeah, exactly. So it sort of had an impact then, so I had to drop it for a while, but I resumed shortly. Then other commitments came in, work and all other things, so I had to leave for a while. Though there are times I still have a PDF on Hebrew. There are times I still go through Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek. I didn't really show much interest in Greek, but since I want to delve into New Testament studies, like studies of the New Testament, there are lots of arguments, and there are lots of arguments that undermine the authority of the New Testament or the truth of the New Testament. So I feel understanding Greek would help me. That's Koine Greek, not just any Greek. Koine Greek would help me, which is why I want to learn it. So I was introduced to all those things pretty early, which is why I had built a lot of passion around it and was able to build myself to an extent. I know I do not know much, but I can say to a certain level I'm familiar with a lot of philosophical arguments, maybe arguments from sufficient reason, divine hiddenness and all. So at a point, all those things began to impact my faith. So I began to see reasons, because I was not really introduced to strong Christian arguments then for the existence of God, or strong theistic arguments for the existence of God. I always see those philosophies as coming more from the atheist side, and given that I'm someone that anything that's reasonable appeals to me, I saw myself I saw myself approaching atheism. So, but my atheism was covert to some people and open to others. My mom never knew about my atheism at all.
So,
though I once posed.
kind of skip some. What I'm trying now. It was as a result of your engaging with atheists. You started losing faith.
Losing faith, gradually.
So you got to a point where you believed God. You didn't believe God existed.
It got to a point I was like, fuck it. like, no, there is no God. And then I frequented Facebook a lot, so I was always making posts that undermine the existence of God. Let me think. One example: the Old Testament God, is known for a level of belligerence, and
A
yeah.
level.
So
You are
yeah.
understating it. Like, okay, now with you saying with the God of the Old Testament, did you ever see
Okay.
that God as an asshole? Like,
At some
did you
point,
lose
yes, I did.
respect?
Yeah, at some
You
point.
saw you
But
saw
then
God as
I saw him
flawed. Did you
as
see
yeah,
God as
yeah,
flawed?
as flawed. Yes, but there is something I want you to understand now. Like, in philosophy, there are categories of evils. It gets to a point that we admit the existence of necessary evil. There are some evils that are necessary. It's called the evil of punishment. It's a necessary thing. Like, even laws work by that philosophy, the evil of punishment. When you put someone in prison, you're robbing them of their freedom, which is a kind of evil, a form of evil. A lack of freedom is a form of evil. So when you put someone in prison for breaking the law, you're trying to rectify it by employing some form of evil. So, and sometimes good cannot be realized without, in philosophy, it is argued that good cannot be realized with a certain level of evil in the philosophical sphere. So it was something I did not really consider when I undermined the Old Testament God. So I felt like God was too perfect. No, or I felt Christians argued that God was too perfect, or at least theists argued that God was too perfect, which means he should be above any kind of human frailty, anything that would expose the flawed nature of humanity. I was
Yeah.
God that was jealous, one that gets angry or offended. Yeah, but then I also realized at some point, when I was living atheism, I realized at some point that perfection itself is a limitation. So when you want a perfect God, a God that's perfect, he's bound by rules that he cannot break. For example, there's this idea that God cannot sin. That makes it one thing he cannot do. So, or that God cannot kill, it makes it one thing he cannot do. Like, why would a God be bound by rules he supposedly created? So I'm more of like, one thing is to adjust the theological balance of the theological balance regarding perfection. So I can say, or one could argue that when you say God is perfect, you're using perfection in the sense of expertise. Like, there is such a thing as someone who is perfectly evil, if you will agree with me, or there's such a thing as an evil genius, an evil genius. So it's more like describing perfection in terms of infiniteness. Like, God can do anything, good or bad. So wanting a perfect God is wanting a limited God. And a limited God at some point cannot bring to fruition the goodness that he promises. So if God was limited, if God was too perfect, then whatever thing he promises in the scripture, whatever good thing he promises in the scripture cannot be brought to fruition, because at some point you cannot realize goodness without a necessary evil. So this was something I did not bring, or this was something I did not realize on time, because of course I was not familiar with. Okay, they are called theodicies, arguments for God's existence. Okay, no, that's not a theodicy. A theodicy is an argument for God's existence in in the obviousness of evil, like trying to argue that God exists even though there is evil. That's a theodicy. So, but in this in this context, I was unaware of arguments for the actions of the Old Testament God. So
Now, can I ask you? I want to ask you
I want to ask you clarify.
What's happening? I'm hearing
What's
myself.
happening? I'm near myself.
Okay, hold on, let me mute my ask please.
Twe. Okay, I can't hear myself again. Wait. Okay, you muted yourself so that we. Oh, all right. So you said that you seem to like say necessary evil, like all the. Wait, are you saying that all the things that an atheist will consider as God being evil were all necessary?
Well, not really. Okay.
Okay, give me one particular action that an atheist consider evil that you don't also see as a necessary evil. That is not a necessary evil.
Okay, something that an atheist considers evil that I think is actually necessary.
That is not that. Okay, yes. Give me one that is necessary and one that is not necessary.
For example, the evil of hunger is a necessary evil. Like, you need the evil of hunger to understand what it means to be filled. That's to experience the good of tasty food is one example of necessary evil. Now, opposed to there's a difference between hunger and starvation. Now, in one promise of God in the Bible is to get rid of starvation. Though some people say, or though some translators use hunger, but I feel the evil God will get rid of, one evil God will get rid of is starvation, not the evil of hunger. Now, starvation is the evil of hunger ad nauseum. That's to a sickening degree. That's starvation. So, but hunger itself is necessary to understand the goodness of tasty food. But starvation is the evil of hunger to a degree, like to an unreasonable degree. So what I feel God will be getting rid of, for example, is starvation. But there's a verse in the Bible that says, it says they shall beat their swords into plowshares and they shall learn no war anymore. Now, one thing I can derive from this particular verse, it's a verse in Isaiah. One thing I can derive from the particular verse is, yes, that the concept of farming would be a thing in God's coming kingdom. It said they would beat their swords into plowshares. So the concept of farming would be a thing in God's coming kingdom. But then farming would not be necessary if the evil of hunger does not still exist. So what God is getting rid of is starvation. You would be hungry even in God's new paradise, but means for you to feel that hunger would be available.
Okay, let me clarify what you mean by your hunger.
Okay.
Like now, I have not eaten since 12 o'clock or thereabouts. Okay. So me feeling hungry, is that the hunger you're referring to as the evil?
Yeah, evil. Yes.
That is not evil. That is just the body. That's the body functioning. The evil is the children dying of hunger.
Okay, let me explain something. Let me explain something. Like in philosophy, we consider even the least evil. Like even a paper cut is considered a form of evil. A mere paper cut is considered evil. So hunger is a certain level of evil.
That's trivializing
evil.
No.
It is. That's trivializing.
Okay. How do I explain this now?
Because I didn't eat in the morning, for maybe I've been busy throughout the day, and now that hunger has reached a level that I just have to quickly rush.
But it's causing you inconvenience, isn't it?
Yes.
Then, like, no matter the level of inconvenience, as long as it brings some sort of inconvenience,
you can't compare inconvenience of me not eating this morning with a child dying in
yes, a child dying, it's evil, but
you can't call them both evil. Do you get it?
Why do you think so?
You are trivializing what evil is.
Okay, let me think of one other form of evil that's similar to hunger. Okay, I used the paper cut as an example. Okay, what of do you consider sickness an evil?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, sickness
okay.
can
Yeah,
work. Let's say malaria if you want to.
Malaria,
Okay.
but okay, what of cold, a common cold? Now, compare a common cold to, say, something like the coronavirus. Okay,
COVID.
COVID,
Yeah.
exactly. Compare the common cold to COVID. Is the common cold not a form of evil?
Mm,
You do agree it is a sickness. You do agree it is a sickness, right? The common cold is a
yeah.
sickness. But then compared to COVID, COVID deals a lot of damage compared to the common cold. But then you would still consider the common cold a form of evil because it's bringing a level of even boredom. Boredom is evil, is a kind of evil, at least in philosophical sphere. Hold up, someone is at the door.
Okay.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry. So
Okay.
evil exists in various levels. There are levels of
See,
evil
the
that
reason
can be
why,
overlooked.
let me tell you why I'm pushing
Okay.
back. When people bring up this theodicies, they are not talking about common code that you can just take pro code and you're good. They are not talking about hunger that you buy gala on the road and solve. They are talking about children dying in hospital, children being born with bone cancer, blood cancer. They were born with it. Children who were born blind. The children are suffering terminal diseases in hospitals. Children of the people dying of starvation. That is what they usually term as the evil that is the problem of evil. Not this trivializing what you are doing. Common cold to COVID. Common cold to SARS.
Okay. Actually, the thing is,
do you understand?
I understand what you
So
mean.
every time
but
that theodicy
even
is
the
brought
problem
up,
of
that
evil,
is what they bring up. Those are the key issues: the starvation, the terminal illness, cancer that is killing everybody in the world. Those are the things that people are talking about when they are referring to the problem of evil.
actually, in philosophy, like we consider all ranges of evil, all ranges.
That is
It's
why I
still
am
evil.
specifying the evil being
Find that,
referred
okay.
to when the problem of evil is being brought up by a disbeliever.
Okay, I understand what you mean. So my argument my argument was this, that a level of evil is necessary. That's why I call hunger necessary evil, because it is not to a degree like starvation.
You still do not understand what I'm saying. It's you have to do that for this argument to sort of work. What is being focused on are the life-threatening evils, the life-taking evils. You get that's the focus of this problem of evil. What I just described: the children, the starvation, the cancer. Those are some of the examples. Like there are even insects, worms that eat the human eye. That's the way they survive. Is it human eye or eyes of
The
animals?
snail eye, snail. It's called. I think it's called leucochloridium. I recently.
There are insects that their existence is they can't
Like
survive
the
without being
parasitic
parasitic.
wasp.
Those are some things that
Okay, I
we can
understand.
term this as that is just
A form of evil. Yes,
no,
a
we
form
can
of
even
evil.
term it as circle of life. Just like a lion has to kill the deer to survive.
Okay.
You understand?
Now,
Just like we said, we have to kill chicken to stay alive.
okay.
But
So
problems are like the cancer and the children being born with them terminal illnesses. Those are the evils we are referring to when we are talking about problem of evil, not
Problems
just
of evil.
hunger. The philosophy you are trying to pull is diminishing, is trivializing those
No, no, no.
situations. That's what it's doing. You
Okay,
may
okay,
not
no, no,
realize
no.
it. I'm just telling you how it's perceived.
It's not trivializing the situation. Remember, I was giving an example of a necessary evil. Like, yes, I understand those things you're talking about are evil. But then I was giving an argument of a form of evil called necessary
Yeah,
evil, like
okay.
for to experience some kind of good, is what I was explaining, is what I was making an argument
Okay.
for. So,
Let's wrap so that we'll go to unnecessary.
okay. So, the thing is, one example of evil that was considered necessary in the Bible. Let's see. Um, okay, I called one earlier, but okay. I think it had something to do with cannibalism in the Bible. Where I think God punished the Israelites for passing their children in the fire.
Okay.
Now, or Sodom and Gomorrah is another example. Even though there is no archaeological evidence that Sodom and Gomorrah ever existed, or that there was a civilization that was wiped out by fire and brimstone. But one example is, according to the biblical tale, the people of Sodom wrought evil, things that were considered evil in the eyes of God, and He wiped them off the map. So it's one thing you can consider. God's action in that situation is one thing you can consider a necessary evil, like a kind of evil that is aimed
Like,
at
okay, Sodom and
attaining.
Gomorrah.
Sodom and Gomorrah.
Is one example, like
Unnecessary.
wiping of necessary. Wiping Sodom and Gomorrah is one example of necessary evil.
Why is it necessary? Why was it necessary?
Now, according to the tale, the biblical tale, the people of Sodom and Gomorrah wrought evil in the sight of God, right?
Okay.
So why it's considered a necessary evil is it's a form of evil that is meant to right a wrong.
Okay.
Wait, did you catch that? Did you catch
Yeah,
that?
right or
Okay,
wrong,
so
yeah.
it's a kind of evil that's meant to right a wrong. Which is why I compared it to putting people in prison, putting criminals in jail. That's a form of evil. You're robbing them of their freedom. It's a form of
what evil did they do to deserve the punishment?
I didn't catch that.
What did they do to deserve what was that particular evil? Was there a particular offense they committed?
Okay, you mean the people of Sodom and Gomorrah? Yeah. Okay, yeah. So the Bible did not explicitly state that, but based on external sources or commentaries, the people of Sodom and Gomorrah were inhospitable to visitors. Now, it's quite unlike, a lot of people like to say they practiced what's called sodomy, or they were homosexuals, which is wrong. A lot of the commentaries on that portion of the Bible said they were inhospitable to visitors.
Okay.
So, So God had to take action and wipe them out from the map.
Okay, so let's go to
one example of. Okay, now so unnecessary evil. One thing I consider unnecessary in the Bible is the scenario that involved Uzzah. That stretched his hand to touch the ark. The ark stumbled on the oxen.
Was his name
then
Uzzah?
He stretched it. Yeah, the name of the man was Uzzah.
Okay, that was the ark of God. I remember ark of God. That the ark was about to fall down.
That the ark stumbled there, and he stretched his hand to touch it, to touch the ark. And is one thing I consider unnecessary evil.
Why?
And then,
why is it unnecessary?
In the sense that Uzzah did not do anything we might consider wrong.
Okay.
I think there was a rule about only Levites being allowed to touch the ark.
Yeah.
But then this was someone that was doing something that's to God's interest. The ark was stumbling. He stretched his hand to touch it, and he was immediately struck. Now, it's one thing, even till now, I consider that aspect of the Bible. I still ponder on that aspect of the Bible. And I was thinking of one just now, one other form of unnecessary evil, and it skipped my mind. One form of unnecessary evil. Oh, aside the
No, one is enough if you can't remember. But there's a follow-up
Okay.
question to your answer of the unnecessary.
okay.
Now,
All right,
this
what's-
is one of your many unnecessary, or is it not many? Okay, a few unnecessary. Why would you still worship such a God that does unnecessary evil?
Okay. Well, the thing is,
Thank you for listening to this episode. Please subscribe up Apple, Spotify, Google, YouTube, and other places you'll find podcasts. Then check out the show notes below for links you may find useful. Have a great week, and I will catch you on the next one.